The drive to destroy the demand for rhino horns as part of an effort to protect the animal from the rampant poaching in South Africa continues to look to science for an effective tool. A pioneering project involving radioactive isotopes is underway. What is this all about? Well, SABC Lerato Fikisi has more.
The issue of rhino poaching is really not new to the Eastern Cape, and nor is it new to South Africa. I remember a few months ago there was a court case we covered in Grahamstown where 4 men were actually implicated in a huge syndicate concerning rhino poaching, and it was evident then that rhino in South Africa are in huge demand, especially in the Eastern Cape. But the big problem with rhino poaching that for a long time it's been very reactive and not proactive. If a rhino goes missing or is poached, they will send rangers out, they will do all they can to make sure that doesn't happen again. But the beauty of this specific science, the first of its kind in this country and in the Eastern Cape, is that it's going to be proactive. It's going to make sure that even before the poachers arrive on the scene, the rhinos are protected. And joining me this morning is the brains, the co-founder of this beautiful project, and his name is Professor James Larkin. Professor James Larkin, let's first talk just how in the world did you manage to come up with such a creative way to ensure that our rhinos are safe in the country?
It's built on work that other people have done over the years in terms of using sort of possibility of poisons or something like that in the horn. We were lucky enough to sort of see what the work they were doing, and it came in for some criticism, so we learnt our lessons from that, and we thought, how do we make this move further forward? And with my background in radiation protection and more recently in nuclear security, we came up with this idea, why don't we look at putting radioactive material into the horn to be able to, one, devalue the horn, so people don't actually want to own a piece of rhino horn that has a small quantity of radioactive material in it. But the second part of it is it makes it that much easier to be able to track a horn if it's been stolen, or been poached rather. By making it radioactive, as it's moved across borders, moved around countries, it's going to be setting off radiation detectors, because globally there's something like 10,000 radiation detectors that have been installed with the specific task of looking for illicit radioactive material. So we're working on the back of that sort of thing to be able to say, if the horn's taken, we can track it, and so we can intercept the horns and obviously prosecute those people who are, caught in possession of it.
Professor Larkin, a few minutes ago we saw a helicopter arrive with the isotope. Just in layman's term, what is the isotope and where are you going to insert it into the horn to protect this horn against poaching?
Okay, an isotope is a particular type of molecule, if you like. I'd probably have to sort of go back to school and teach myself and then teach everybody else what it is. But it's a tool, if you like, that we can use to identify, to tag materials, and so that's what we're going to be doing with this isotope at the moment. We've brought it in from the US, which was a heck of a performance in itself, because the manufacturer got delayed, and so it was delayed by the courier companies, and we were getting more and more concerned, and eventually the package arrived in South Africa at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and someone was a flight down to PE, and then the farm owner and my colleague flew to PE in a helicopter. It looked a bit dramatic, I think, but it's adds to the story. But it means that we can do this science and do the work. And what we're going to do is we're going to input this stable isotopes. It's basically what we call an amino acid. The stable isotopes have been used to make an amino acid, which is a building block of keratin, which forms the horn, and we're going to put that into the horns of 2 animals today. And this is going to allow us to do science to understand behaviour materials in the horn, so we can then further develop the idea and get to the point eventually where we can say, okay, we can put radioactive material into the horn of these animals and hopefully then protect them. We want to be able to find a useful, convenient manner which protects these beautiful animals.
Lastly, Professor Larkin, obviously you said they're going to put them into the horn now. Just going forward now, for a long time the issue of rhino poaching or preventing it has been very active. What role now do you think that science can play in preventing poaching, unlike other methods that are used before?
I think Well, science is allowing us to be proactive, to be able to prevent the poaching by, getting the local populations, the international populations to understand that we're protecting this horn, and using the tools of science that are available, and using particularly the tools of nuclear science, which I think has been long overdue to bringing into this sort of project, is to be able to then find a way to protect these animals. It's protecting Africa and South Africa's future. I mean, we are one of the very few countries in the world where you can come and see the Big Five. And we've got to work hard to maintain that for the tourism industry, for people's employment, for the benefit of everyone who lives and works around the game farms and game parks. You have to realise that you can shoot a rhino once, but if you shoot it with a camera, you can shoot it 100 times, 1,000 times. And so if you shoot it, a couple of people make some money out of it. But if you shoot it with a camera and people keep coming back to see these beautiful animals, then that's jobs for lots of people. That's growth of the economy around the game farms, around all of these areas, and that's so important. We're seriously battling with unemployment and poverty and things like that, and we're going to, as part of this whole project, we've got an education program and a social upliftment program as well running, and we want to be able to make people realise that these animals are worth far more on 4 feet than they are on their back dead.
Perfect. That was Professor James Larkin just speaking about the importance of preserving these rhinos. I'm sure you are aware that 90% of the rhinos are actually found in South Africa. Interesting thing that he pointed out as well is that rhinos aren't only an asset in terms of our Big Five, but also in terms of job creation at a time where our economy is crippled by COVID-19. It's important that we ensure that people have jobs, and to preserve and take care of rhinos is a form of employment. So he's saying that the scientific method of preventing rhino poaching is proactive. It's making sure that we preserve this huge jewel in our country.